Good morning, happy 4th of July, and welcome to Quality Sewing and Vacuum's June Sew Fun Live at Facebook. We have 11 local stores in the Puget Sound area, and I'm Jenny Swenson, and I teach Sew Fun for Quality Sewing and Vacuum. You can get any of the products that we show you today at Quality Sewing and Vacuum, qualitysewing.com, I'm sorry. And that products will be available until July 11th. And if you like, comment, or share today, because it's live, we are giving away door prizes. So that's the way that you sign up to do that. So I'm going to start off telling you about a few things that I'm not going to demo in the presentation. The first one is this really cute little paw print dusting brush. And my favorite part about it is if you close it partially up and feel that little paw, it feels exactly like a paw print of a cat. And I don't have cats anymore, so it's really special for me. But otherwise, you can dust your computer, your sewing machine, anything electronic because it's microfiber. And it's just a cute little add-on. These are the Easy Tweezies, and I think if I show this, how can I show this really close? Okay, so if you look at this, it has really fine tips on there, which is great for any time that you're doing lettering in your embroidery. You know how you have the O and the A and the E that has this, the stabilizer left in those areas. If you go in there, and you can get them out much easier that way. It's also great for paper piecing if you want to get corners of the paper out. We have a sheer press cloth, and this is made out of 100% silk, and you can see that it is totally sheer so that when you're ironing, if you get a crease in there, you can see it before you press it in, which is a great idea. And then because it's silk and it's a natural fiber, if you have an iron that spits, it will absorb that moisture and keep it from marring the fabric. It also prevents scorching, so it's a wonderful thing when you're ironing. We have the wash away adhesive tape, and we used this during the presentation when we were putting zippers into our bags. It is a 1/2 inch wide. Usually I use a 1/4 inch, so I cut it in half, which gives you double the yardage, but it washes away and it doesn't gum up your needle. And probably the most popular thing that we brought in that was not demonstrated was the Iron Clean. This is non-messy, which is a big deal because I have the old iron cleaner that comes in, looks like a toothpaste tube, and when I took it to Quilt Retreat, someone put it on the iron and it got into the holes and it was really difficult to clean. This is 10 sheets, they're reusable, and what you do is you put it over the edge of the the ironing board, and then your iron scrapes along it and it will clean it really nicely. Several people mentioned that they really love this and they use it a lot. So there's 10 sheets in there. Okay, the first item I'm going to talk about is the June Taylor Sewing Machine Cover and Caddy. This is a quilt as you go project. It's really simple and it's great for anyone who is learning to sew. One woman told me she uses it when she goes to Quilt Retreat because she doesn't have to think. She can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and chat while she's sewing. Ann and I both made a complete set. Ann's is a large, and on the front of that it tells you the sizes. You are going to have to decide which size you're going to make because it's all 3 printed on the batting. So the large is this one, and Ann used a grab bag from Moda Fabrics, which is all the leftovers from when they cut the strips and the squares from Moda. So this area here is only 8 inches, so you can use small scraps if you want to. And then you do need some yardage for the interior. I made the medium, and this fits my FOF 2140, which I take with to Quilt Retreat. And that's what I'm going to use this for. Ann's fits her FOF 720. Okay. And so I used leftover scraps for my piecing. And then Ann and I both had to make a decision. When you're making the caddy, you have one pieced side and one plain side. And the pocket is made by turning up one of those. So I use the plain side for where my machine will sit, and Ann used the pieced side, but she uses really pretty fabrics for the back, and so it's nice for her to turn that up because it matches perfectly, and mine doesn't match perfectly, so I use the pieced side to turn it up. When you're sewing the pocket, these get a lot of wear and tear, so what I did is I started at the top, so down, come back up, and then I did a bar tack. And that way all of the stress from you putting things in there will not mar that and rip it out. One lady had a picture of hers at home, and she actually has her TV remote in here, which is good if you remember to put it back. So that is the June Taylor Quilt As You Go sewing machine caddy and cover. The next item I'm going to talk about is block talk. Okay, and this is the block talk that I made. I went to a quilt store last summer and found the pattern and this panel of unicorn fabric, and I purchased it and then thought I would make it for a granddaughter that I had that was just 4 months old at the time. And I'm going to tell you, if you want to make this pattern, get 2 panels, because I learned the hard way that 1 is not enough. So I had started making this, and then my son remarried and we got I call her a bonus granddaughter. Her name is Cora, and I made it for her 3rd birthday. So 1 panel would only make it a square quilt, and I thought for a 3-year-old you want a bigger quilt. So I had to go and search online for more of the fabric, okay? When I quilted it with my long arm and a pantograph, and that is by Urban Elements. The embroidery in the middle is when I was making it square and I didn't have enough blocks, and that is from Urban Threads. Now I made this and gave it to Cora on her 3rd birthday in February, and then I realized I needed it back for June Sew Fund. So I called my son and I said, do you think I could borrow the quilt back? And he said, you have to talk to Cora. So I sat Cora down and I said, now Cora, in June I would like to borrow the quilt back, and it will be gone for a little while. And she got this very serious look on her face, and she said, Grandma Jenny, if you want to share it with the other grandmas, you can. So we have this because of Cora. And I did put a real short pile Menke on the back for her. And that is the one that I made. The one that Ann made is over here on the other end. And she made hers out of layer cakes by Moda. And when she was making this, she realized, well, we all realized that the Moda layer cakes are not truly 10 inches square. So what she had to do was square them up, and we brought in this wonderful square up ruler. And what's so great about this is it only has markings at the inch and the half inch, which is usually what you're squaring things up to. It is 10 inches square, and it has the diagonal line on here to square things up correctly. And then on the back, it has little grip areas so that when you put your pressure on it, it does not slide. So Creative Grids rulers are really wonderful for that reason. But this is you don't need the 1/8 inch and the 1/4 inch and the 3/4 inch. You just need the 1.5 inches when you're squaring up. Okay. So when I was making this, they talk about partial seams, and I am not familiar with partial seams, so it made me a little apprehensive. And I thought I would demo that for you so that you can see how to do that. So I have cut out 2 more quilts, and they go together very, very fast. This is I guess it's a C theme. And then my son is in the music business, so I'm making him one that is rock and roll. Now this one has 3-inch strips, so that it's going to be a little bigger. And when you're making your partial seam, what you do is you start. I'm going to see if I can get this so that you can see it without a visual aid. Okay. So you have pieced the long strip and that little square, and you start at one corner of your square, and you sew from this point here all the way over till you hit 2 inches and you stop. So what you have is that partial seam there. Then you turn it counterclockwise and you sew that strip onto the top, and you turn it again and you sew that strip onto the top, and you do a final strip here. Okay, this is the partial seam, and it's real easy to finish off if you know what they're talking about. Okay, but that gives you that pinwheel shape, and so I'm going to go over here and demo that for you. Now when I'm sewing a 1/4-inch seam, I have my 1/4-inch foot on the sewing machine, and I have moved my needle position 1 position to the right. And what that does, it gives me a scant 1/4 inch. So I have a tie off here where I've tied off from my previous seam, and I am lining that up. So when I'm sewing, all I have to do is watch the edge of the foot here. I don't have to worry about where the needle's going or anything. I just watch the edge of the foot. And once you have that done, then you get that pinwheel effect where usually when we've made a square block, we have this square up here, up in the corner, and instead it's offset a little bit, so it makes it look like a pinwheel. So that's the partial seam. The next item we're going to talk about is the Complete Bag Making Masterclass. And this book is so full of information. The author's name is Samantha Hussey, and she is called Mrs. H by all of her students. She has a Facebook group, and she has a website. Half of this book is technique. And I can see Mrs. H's students saying, you know, Mrs. H, you have so much information. We really would like a book. So half of this tells you all of the information that you need to know about making pockets, about hardware, about stabilizing, everything that you can think of to make a bag look professional. And then the other half is patterns. Now, when I picked this book up, the first thing I did is looked at the patterns, and I picked out a pattern that is advanced. So what you need to know that I didn't is they start out easy and they get more difficult as you go through the book. Okay, so the first one I'm going to show you is an easy one. Oops. This is called the Piped Hobo. Okay, and Anne made it, and you'll notice that it's got this really nicely made piping, and I will demo that for you later. She has used a very nice soft vinyl. When you're looking for vinyl for purse making, you want to make sure that you get ones that are tricot lined or knit lined, and that will make them soft and supple. You do not want marine vinyl, which is heavy. So Anne made this out of a home deck fabric on the outside, and she interfaced that. And then on the inside, she used a quilter's cotton, and she used a fleece lining on the other side of that one, on the wrong side. All of these bags have a slip pocket in them. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. And then they also have a zipper pocket. Okay. And Anne was kind enough to give us samples of the pocket and how to do that. So what you'll notice is that you have a long skinny triangle that you have made that is like a welt pocket. And then you stick the zipper behind it with that double stick tape and you sew it down. Okay, so it's all of the pockets are made that, I mean the zipper pocket is made that same way. So this shows you one of these steps also is how to make that, there it is, the welt opening, that long skinny rectangle. And all that, of course, this is all in the book. So one of the tips that I learned from Mrs. H was on these magnetic snaps, they have the prongs that come through, and I always push the prongs out, and instead what you should do is close them around the snap closure so that it hugs it, so it stays nice and tidy. Okay, and you'll notice that Anne also, she put rivets on the inside to hold her pockets in place. Anywhere that's going to get stress on something, if you put a rivet in there, it prevents it from pulling out. So she's got it here on some of the straps also. And Anne used screw-in grommets here to hold these circles. And when she was doing that, if you've ever worked with home deck fabric, you know that it's very, very ravelly. And in order to prevent that from raveling, she used the fabric tack glue that we brought in, and that will seal that area so she could screw those grommets on without getting the fabric caught in the middle. Okay, so this is a wonderful product. So that is the piped hobo bag. And so now I'll show you how to do that piping so that it turns out to look that nice and smooth and tidy. So when we're making, it's called piping or welting. It depends on the filler that goes in here. And what you want is a specific foot that has that tunnel in there. Can you see that?
Bring it a little closer and put it in your hand.
Okay. So there's a tunnel that the piping will ride under, and you move the needle to the position so that it will create a nice smooth look. Now, piping is also always better if you used bias fabric here, and I did not. I used actually straight of grain. So when I'm making this, I have already made the piping, but this is how you would make it. So you would move the needle position. I move the needle position over to 3.0. And if you look here, that's where that seam is. Once I've made the piping and I want to put it into the fabric, the way to get that piping to look really nice is I move my needle position 2 positions towards the welting. So instead of 3.0, I'm making it 2.5. And what that does is it eats up any extra width of fabric there, and it hides my previous seam, so it's never going to show in creation. So once you've done this, that piping is going to be really nice and smooth and firm. So that nothing shows. So there's no seam allowance showing there, And it's nice and tight. And that's how you do piping or welting. The next bag that Anne made is the Crossbody bag. And this bag has 4 functioning pockets on the outside. So that outer pocket here goes all the way underneath, and there's 2 pockets in there. And there's 2 pockets in there. So you've got 4 outer pockets. It also has this wonderful zipper on the top, which I like because I feel like it leaves things much more secure and I don't lose things. And again, we have a slip pocket on the inside and a zipper pocket. And she's used some of those wonderful rivets again to hold things nice and sturdy. This is that wonderful vinyl that is soft and supple. So that's what you want to look for, something that's really soft and easy to use. Because you're turning these bags inside out, you don't want to have to work too hard to do that. Let's see. The zippers that we brought in are size 5, and they are from Sally Tomato. And we've got them in gold, antique gold, nickel, copper, and iridescent. So many choices for you. And that is what Anne used up here. This is a size 5 with copper. We did bring in black taped ones though, because usually purses get pretty dirty, so it would hide everything. Okay. Something that Anne did consider doing is making an inner pocket that would divide the purse into 3 layers, but she decided not to use it, so she sent this along to show you what this would look like. So this would be sewn totally into the purse, and it would divide your purse into 3 areas. So you'd have your outer area, an inner zipped area, and another outer area of a pocket of the purse. So I'm going to show you the zipper jig because we brought in the zipper by the yard. I should probably do it over there where it's easier to see. So when you look at the zipper jig, it has 2 slots. One is a 3 and one is a 5. And when you look at the numbers here, that is the wrong side of everything. So this the zipper jig doesn't really come with any instructions. So when you're doing it, if you want, you can go to YouTube, or you can just remember that everything is away from you. So when I'm putting the zipper pull on here, I am putting it with the wrong side facing me. And the tab, the zipper pull, is towards that way, which is the right side. The same goes with the zipper. You have when you're doing this, you have a right and a wrong side. The right side of the zipper has real prominent teeth, and the wrong side has mainly tape showing, if you look at the difference there. Okay, so I want the teeth going away from me. Okay, and the secret to this is you do it at an angle and don't try and go straight up and down. Okay, and once you get in there, then you just pull it straight down, and it ends up being even, which is a big deal. You can also do it from the other side, that you have a double pull, and it makes it so much easier than the other ways we've tried for many years. Okay, so everything goes away from you, away from the number. All the right sides are away from you. Okay, so that is the zipper jig. The next purse is called the Interchange Crossbody Backpack. And I had this wonderful quilted vinyl in my resource center for years, and I knew I wanted to make a purse, but I couldn't decide what to use with it. I visited my mother in March, and she took me into her sewing room and said, I have a shelf of fabric that I don't want. Would you like it? And I said, well, of course. So we had to ship it home because I refused to carry it in my suitcase because it's too heavy. And in that wonderful fabric was Laurel Birch birds. So I decided to use that, and it matched my vinyl perfectly. This bag is an advanced beginner, and it has this wonderful circle here, and it has all of these tabs so you can interchange and make it. I like it set up as a backpack, but you could undo the clamps, these little snaps here, and use the upper ones, an upper one and a lower one, to make it a crossbody. But you'd have to take it out of this. So for the crossbody, it would be like this, which makes it really easy to change. The straps are adjustable, and so you would, of course, I would make it shorter. This would be my son-in-law, who's 6'4", who could wear the long one, okay? When I was making this, I was having a hard time visualizing some of the instructions. So I went to the Facebook group, which is called, in fact, I have to look it up. It is called Sewing Patterns by Mrs. H Support Group, Inspiration and Support. So if you go to Facebook and you type in the search, Sewing Patterns by Mrs. H, it will come up. Okay, and then you can join. And what's nice about that is there are all of these photos of the bags made by different people, and they have sew-alongs, they have instructions, they answer questions. Mrs. H goes on there. But this bag has that inner pocket, or the inner part of the bag, that has a zipper pocket and a slip pocket. It also has a hidden pocket back here. And this was the part that I was having a difficult time understanding. So I typed in that Facebook group, I typed in interchange crossbody backpack, and again, I got all of the help I needed in order to make sure that I got that correctly created, okay? But I did use soft and stable in here. You do never iron vinyl. It will just melt on you. And I did use some of those wonderful grommets because I have 3 different layers of fabric coming together at this area. So, and I want that flap to stay nice and secure, okay? So let's talk about grommets. Grommets are just little tabs. Is this a good place to do that? Okay. And I have a sample of a strap here. We brought in grommets in gold, nickel, and iridescent. We also brought in a grommet setting tool, and this is a wonderful tool because what it has a dome there, and it's the perfect size for the rivets that we brought in. I have a universal rivet setter, and it did not work as well as this one. So what I'm talking about is this is the top of that, and it fits, and it's held perfectly perpendicular there so that it doesn't skew as much. Yes?
So Sharon has a question. She wants to know, do you use a Teflon foot or any particular needle when sewing the vinyl?
You can use a Teflon foot. I have a FOF, so I have the dual feed, so I don't have to. Anne did use a super needle, which is the non-stick needle, and she said that was very effective for vinyl. I didn't have any difficulty with mine. So let's see if I wrote anything. Nope, I didn't use anything special. Probably just the size 90 universal needle worked fine for me, but it depends on you and your machine. Yeah. So those super needles they were used to be called anti-glue needles. Okay. Okay, so we brought in a mini fabric punch set, and this has hole punches that go from size 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter, 4 millimeter, and 5 millimeter. I am using the 2 millimeter one for this. And when I'm doing this, I brace my hand against the cutting board, and this is on a plastic table, so it takes a lot more effort to go through the fabric. At home I do it on the floor, and so this is going to get loud. Okay, so now I have the hole. So when I was working with the interchange crossbody bag, I had to make sure that all three of those layers of fabric were on top of each other when I punched the hole. Then you put the tab of the rivet through there, through the hole, and you put this cap on, and the cap snaps on and you can't lose it, which is a great help. And then you make sure that that dome is where you put the top of that. And on the post here, there's a mirror dome that goes on top of there. And again, I brace my hand against the cutting board, and I try and make sure that this stays perpendicular. And you gently increase the pressure. And once you do that, the rivet closes in on itself and makes that very stable. Okay. No questions about that? Okay. So that is how to do rivets, and they do add a lot of stability. You could use that on these pockets for the June Taylor bag. You can use it anywhere where there's going to be a lot of stress. The final bag I made was actually, no, the final bag I'm showing is the first bag I made. Okay. This is the Trio pocketbook, and I was going to Europe in June, and I thought, I was making this in February, and I thought, you know, I could take this with me because it has so many nice features. It has this one pocket on the inside that has a zipper pocket. Then there's a zipper pocket that has a slip pocket. So each of them you can add or decrease pockets. I don't know why you would decrease because we all love them. But it was the first time I had worked with cork, and I really enjoyed working with it. And someone asked me, well, how do you know what's good cork? And I said, it's the price. Okay, if it's cheap cork, you don't want to even try working with it, because as you're turning the bag right side out, it will start fraying and you've wasted all of your effort. So this is good quality cork. And when you're making the handles, which is what I have here, you only have 2 layers to deal with. So you just fold it in half and seam it. So it's really easy to work with. It doesn't fray. The only thing that I can tell you is that it takes a little bit more work to turn the bag right side out because it is stiff. And I have arthritis in my hands, so I just had to keep taking breaks before I got too sore. Okay. And again, this has that adjustable strap, and I don't think I used any rivets on here. So, okay, so that is the Trio pocketbook. The next item I'm going to talk about is the Mave skirt. And this comes in 2 size ranges. So the first one here, and it's the same skirt. One woman didn't understand that they were the same skirt, just different fabrics and lengths. So this one is size 0 to 18, and this one is size 14 to 30. And when I was going to make this, we're looking at my fabric that I had purchased for skirts, and I had a rayon batik, okay? And this was only 45 inches wide, and I know it's dark so it doesn't show very well, but it traveled really well. I ended up taking it with me to Europe. I did not give it to Anne, sorry Anne, because it was so travel friendly. I could hang it up and it would lose its wrinkles. It has pockets, which is great because when we were in Europe, it was unseasonably warm and my allergies started acting up, and I could put Kleenex in my pocket. So there's 2 pockets here. Okay. But because the fabric was only 45 inches wide and the pattern calls for 54 inches wide, I had to try and decide which style I could make. So I went to Twitter. If you go to Twitter and you type in Mave skirt, M-A-V-E skirt, you will find all of these photos of women who have made this skirt. And they're all different ages, all different sizes, and they're wearing them and twirling in them and showing you how much fun this skirt is. But it's a really comfortable skirt. It has a soft waistband elastic, and Ann and I both use the same elastic. It's Dritz. It's 2-inch wide, and it is soft waistband elastic is what it's called, because you're sewing through it, and it did not stretch unreasonably when we were sewing through it. Yes?
So were those images found, were they on Twitter or were they on Instagram?
Twitter.
Twitter. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So this one ends up being about calf length. But what I did is this part, the first tier here is very long and the second tier is short. Okay. If you look at the instruction booklet, it looks like there's 3 choices for this skirt. One has no ruffles. This one has 1 ruffle, and that one has, it's a 3-tier skirt. But if you look inside the instructions are wonderful. You see that you have a mini version that's straight or 2-tier, a midi version that's straight 2-tier or 3-tier, and a maxi version, which is straight 2-tier or 3-tier. So you have 8 choices, and then you can make those tiers different lengths depending on what you have. So that is how I found out that I could shorten that lower tier and make the top longer. Okay, was through Twitter. And then Anne made this wonderful skirt for her daughter Elise, and it is out of a double gauze, which means it looks like it's lined, but it's just very light cotton fabric. And Elise is tall. This on me would be a maxi. On Elise, it's a midi. Again, it has that comfortable elastic and the pockets. Now the pockets, you don't even notice they're there because of the way that that elastic in the waistband is. And they're very, very functional. Okay, so that's a really fun one where you can see the tiers. And the final one that I made to send with Anne is this one. And I found this fabric at Vogue Fabrics when we used to be able to go to Sew Expo Live. And the embroidery made it so that I did a short top tier and I extended this lower tier longer so that I could get all of that embroidery in there and still have some gather. And again, this fits about mid-calf on me, and that's kind of where I wanted it. So that's how I selected what to do. And that's a cotton fabric, but it's a very lightweight. Oh, we have a door prize winner. So you need to send a message with your phone number and then let us know which store you want to pick it up at. And her name is Madeline King. Congratulations, Madeline. Okay. So in the pattern, this skirt with all of those gathers, they tell you to do 2 rows of basting, which we were all taught that when we started sewing. And I'm going to tell you an easier way of doing this because you are doing a lot of gathering. So I'm going to demo this for you. And what I use is, this is called waxed hand quilting thread. And it's a very cheap thread. You can get it at Joann's. And I zigzag over it. So what I do is I use my 0 foot, and when you have sewing machine feet, you can't tell what they're doing by looking at the top of them. So I can't tell what that machine really does. What I want is I want a single narrow groove underneath there that's right in the middle that thread will lie in when I'm sewing over it, so that I never hit it with my sewing machine needle. And I can sew along there and it will stay right in that groove no matter what I do. That is the FOF 0 foot. If you have a brother or a baby lock, your J foot, when you turn it over, has 3 of those little grooves. You want the center one, okay? And so I'm setting my machine up for a zigzag, and I'm leaving my length at the 3, but I'm taking my width down to about 2.5. Okay, and you want it centered. Okay, 2.4 on this machine. And I'm going to show it on the right side of the fabric so that you can see it easier, because that thread is so light. And I'm doing it at about 3/8 of an inch from the edge of the fabric. On the Mave, the seam allowance is 4.0. I'm sorry, it's half. Half inch is the seam allowance, and I want to do this at 3/8, so it's just inside the seam allowance. Okay. So once I get that in that groove, then all I do is I zigzag over it. And depending on the machine and the table that you have it on, you can go pretty fast. So this table doesn't bounce a real lot, which is nice. But I never hit that cord if I'm using the correct foot. And because that thread is waxed, when I pull this, it pulls really easily, and I don't have to pull real hard, and I can adjust those gathers however much I want. And I only have to sew that gathering thing one time, and it's strong. So that's the easy way to do those gathers.
On your skirt with the embroidery, did you use an edge-to-edge design?
The fabric came embroidered.
And can you share one more time the name of the pattern and the company for the skirt?
Yes, it is the Mave, M-A-V-E. Let me get that. And it's by True Bias is the name. It's a fairly new pattern company for us.
And all of these are on our website at qualitysewing.com.
Okay, so the next item I'm going to show, let me clean up here a little bit. We brought in an embroidery garden embroidery design, and it is actually for the sewing caddy and pin cushion that you see here. So it is this pattern, and it's all done in the hoop, and you do need a large hoop to do this because you're making this cute little caddy that sits on your table. I'm going to use this at retreat because it has a nice large pocket here that you can use for any garbage or waste that you've got at retreat. And then you've got a place here for pencils, pin cushion, seam rippers if you use those, and whatever else you want. On the back, you glue shelf liner, and we use that wonderful Fabri-Tac glue again. And what that does is it means it's not going to slide off the table. And also use that glue to glue down the flower and the button here. And this flower she made out of vinyl, and it's for your little clips. Okay, the quilting is all done in the hoop, and we filled the pin cushion with walnut shells. And mine I made out of 3 fat quarters. So again, you use, these pockets are all lined, and everything is done in the hoop, except for the last little seam that you sew by hand to finish off the pin cushion. And there's, on the back is coordinating fabric. And I used felt for my flower, and I used a button, and I just sewed them on because I didn't have the glue yet. Okay? But I am going to put shelf liner on the back of mine so it doesn't slip off the table. But it's a lot of fun, very easy to do. So that's the Embroidery Garden Sewing Caddy and Pin Cushion. And the last item that we have is Top the Table. This is one of my favorite types of books because you have 17 patterns by 17 different designers, which means that there's a lot of variety in technique, in color, and just sizes. So there's a lot going on here, and I'm going to show you what Anne did first. So this one is called Plymouth, and it is a small table topper, and Anne does a wonderful job with color choices. So this is coordinated, and when she quilted it in a grid pattern. So she drew a line from corner to corner, and then corner to corner, sewed one, and then used an adjustable guide foot, set it so that she could just keep sewing. This is a wonderful technique for small projects. It takes a lot of time for large projects. One of my favorite things about it, though, is that once she washes this, those little squares will puff up and you get a lot of texture. She also coordinates her backings, which I do not. Okay. So that is Plymouth from Top the Table. The next one that she did is called Happy Days. And this one, she used 5-inch squares and cut them up. You could use any scraps that you wanted. And again, she used this beautiful fabric on the back. She quilted this with her embroidery machine. And so if you have never quilted with your embroidery machine before and you want to try, the table runners are a wonderful way of doing that because it's small and you can find out how you like it. It's real easy to do. Okay. And then the final one that Anne did is put a ring on it. And she embroidered it again on her embroidery machine. She got the fabric at QualitySewing.com, at Quality Sewing at probably Bellevue or Kirkland because she lives up north. And she quilted it with a design from Gigi's Designs online. And again, she uses that really pretty fabric on the back. And also quilted her block talk with her embroidery machine. She did not use a long arm, and she just hooped it, did edge to edge, and that was from Amelie Scott Designs, edge to edge quilting, and that's what this is too. And then the first one that I made is called Stars at Play. This is done with all triangles. And I have a very good friend named Riva who talks me into buying all of these wonderful things. And she talked me into getting 2 sets of rulers several years ago, and I use them. However, for this one, in the book, it calls for templates. And I thought, I've got those rulers. I bet there's 3 triangle rulers in that set that would work for this so I could cut it out faster. So I laid my rulers on top of the template and then put a piece of tape where I knew the fabric had to go, and I could cut them all out very simply. So that is Stars at Play. I stitched in the ditch because I really like this fabric. I did not want to detract from it. And then the backing is just old, I think it's chambray. So I use up whatever I have available because it's on the back. No one sees it. The next one is called Frank's Prairie, and this one is inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright. This one is supposed to be 5 inches longer, but if you want to shorten it, you just shorten it in the middle here, so you could make this even shorter. What took the longest on this table runner was cutting out all of these little rectangles and squares. And then I had to mark them all, because there's several that are close to the same size but not quite. And then again, I just quilted by stitching in the ditch. On the large squares, I did another square on the inside. And the final one is called Home for the Holidays. In the book, this one is out of a coordinating gray and red Christmas fabric, and it's really cute. And I spent way too much time in March looking for that fabric. That's not the time of year to look for Christmas fabric. So I went home and decided I was making it scrappy. You only need 3 colors of red, a couple of yellows, a green, and a brown for the doors and chimneys, okay? I just traced it on Steam and Seam 2 because although I have a cutting machine, it wasn't a huge project, so it was real easy to trace it out on Steam and Seam 2, cut it out, and then I used a blanket stitch with the color of the fabric matching. And so for the quilting, I did some free motion, and then in here there was a lot of space that's a long, skinny rectangle. And I found a quilting design from OESD, and it fits in there perfect. So it's a wreath. So that's how I quilted that one. And that's all. Are there any other questions?
There was a question about what type of thread did you use for gathering?
In the sewing machine, I use just regular.
Repeat the question because
Oh,
may not have
I'm
heard.
sorry.
Sorry.
So, there was a question about what thread I use for gathering. In the sewing machine, you would never use the waxed hand quilting thread. You're sewing over that. So in the sewing machine, I have just cotton thread. You could use polyester if you're worried about it breaking. But yes, never use waxed hand thread in your sewing machine. Okay? Okay. Okay, we have 2 more winners. Remember, send a message with your phone number and the store location that you would like to pick it up. Myra Kohn, K-O-H-N, and Renee Burgess Bolton. So again, phone number in the message and your store location. And thank you all for coming.